I'm Alex Rigopulos. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Harmonix. Well, this is pretty much the only thing I've ever done. When Eran and I started Harmonix, we weren't making games actually. We were making music software. And we were making these kind of creative music-making experiences that were aimed at giving non-musicians ways to have access to this very special kind of pleasure that comes from music making. And we did that kind of unsuccessfully for 4 or 5 years, and then music games started to appear in Japan. And it was at that point that it struck us that, oh, duh, games, this is the way to do what we're trying to do. And so at that point, we started recruiting a lot of game developers, many of whom were also musicians, to kind of rally to the cause. And so around '99 is when Harmonix kind of changed direction and started focusing on just making music games, and our first was Frequency. Yeah, Harmonix was my first job ever. It was the first thing that Eran and I did after finishing school at MIT. We really wanted to make these kind of music-making experiences, and we thought that no one on earth would give us a job to do this kind of work, so starting a company was really the only way to do it. But I would say thereafter, the person who gave us our first break was Shu Yoshida at Sony, because he was the guy who, when we brought in the prototype of Frequency, which was just ass ugly, and really most of the other publishers were kind of intrigued by, but no one was stepping up for. Shu was actually the guy who stepped forward and said, yeah, we'd like to publish this game. Well, for us, it's not so much about the games, but sort of the music half of music games. What drives us is just that, a lot of people in the company are musicians, and when we play music, it's just, it just feels so damn good, playing music. And for us, games is just a medium to kind of bring some of that experience to people who aren't musicians. And so that's really what we feel when we're playing music ourselves is what drives us to make music games every day. That's a hard question to answer because, as you know, Harmonix had many, many years of creating games that, were critically acclaimed and not commercially successful. So I think that, from my point of view, two pieces to the equation. One is, for me, a game is successful if it, summons an experience in the player that is just kind of primitively joyful in some way. And sometimes that can be kind of, destructive joyfulness, like the joy of ripping someone apart with a chainsaw in Gears of War. But it can also be a different kind of, it can be something like, in Guitar Hero, more of a kind of primitive blissfulness of just kind of the physical act of making music. But the point is, I think for me, a great game is the one that kind of touches something very deep and primitive in me, that I just experience something that gives me goosebumps. The last moment of Katamari Damacy as you're sort of pulling away from the world and rolling up the countries of the world, like those kinds of goosebumps, that's a really successful game. You're really evoking emotion from your player. The second piece is that, is if the game actually reaches a large number of people. Because one of the frustrations we felt was, we felt we were making these games like Frequency and Amplitude that I think on some level were really successful games because the people who were playing them were just freaking about them. But because the games were so weird and difficult to market, that a very small number of people actually were able to have that experience. And so for me, a successful game is the one that kind of has that powerful core experience, but is also wrapped up in a package that allows it to reach a very broad audience. Oh, 700 things make a game fail. Basically everything along the line can make it fail. Making it succeed is when you get lucky enough to actually get it all right. A game is like a game development process. It's like a helicopter. It's like 1,000 parts trying as hard as they can to fly apart and destroy themselves. So when you're lucky enough to manage to keep it all together and functioning properly, and something comes out that you're proud of at the other end, that's a great accomplishment. But boy, any of 700 things can make it fail. One of the things that I would really like to change is changing, which is I would like for physical distribution through retail not to be the way that game creators get their games to gamers. Because the cost of retail distribution, inventory risk, physical cost of goods, the challenges of the marketing investment that's required to push something through retail, it really stifles creativity and experimentation. And for me, one of the great promises of the network's generation of consoles that we're entering now is electronic software distribution. That games like Flow will be distributable online, that other bigger games that people will be able to download a taste of. Games like Frequency and Amplitude that never would have been possible, to be successful for retail distribution, the games like that might actually have a chance through electronic software distribution. So that's actually the piece of the next gen I'm most fired up about, actually. I would say just be willing to take any role to get your foot in the door at a game development company, and just be willing to sort of put in the time, doing the shit work for a long time to basically absorb the culture and ethos of making games. It takes a long time and a lot of hard knocks to really to kind of level up as a game creator. And I think the best way for someone young who wants to get into the industry is get in through any means, as an intern or QA, entry-level tester or whatever. Just get in and put in the time. And once you're there, don't just clock in and clock out, but actually open your eyes and just watch everything that's happening around you in the organization and absorb it. I mean, that story of, if you read The Mezzanine by Nicholson Baker, the entire novel takes place in the narrator's ride from the bottom of an escalator up the escalator to the mezzanine, and it's basically the entire novel is just kind of this guy's inner life as it's unfolding as he rides up this escalator over the entire novel. And that book blew my mind when I first read it, because it just cast a light on how much shit is actually going on in people's heads every moment of every day that's completely opaque to everyone else around them. Honestly, I feel like I'm doing exactly what I want to do before I die. I mean, basically, I think what we've done with Guitar Hero is just kind of the tip of the iceberg. What I really want to do before I die is just kind of change music entertainment in a way that people engage with the music that they love by kind of actively playing with it and actively interacting, playing a role in the process of making the music that they love. And so we've taken some small steps in that direction, but we're really just getting started. And so I think I just want to keep doing what I'm doing. Being a professional musician and being a professional musician. It's like if it's actually working, being a professional musician, it's just a freaking blast. It just feels great for that to be the way that you spend your days. But it's also a hard life. And I have a lot of friends who are professional musicians who just, boy, it's like you're living, it's like you've got the best of life and the worst of life, kind of operating together. So it's probably something, I would, if I weren't doing this, I would choose to punish myself, trying to do in another life. In music videos, it's Michel Gondry. His music videos just blow my mind. In games, boy, there's a lot to choose from. Obviously, Masaya Matsuro was a huge inspiration in my life, because this game's kind of just altered the trajectory of my life. Mizuguchi, of course, is amazing as well. Keita, the Katamari creator, that game blew my mind when it came over. I mean, a lot of these kind of Japanese art house games that would never get funded in the US, these games have probably been the most influential to me as an artist, actually. And actually, the games that Harmonix makes aren't really derivative kind of artistically from these games, but these games are hugely inspirational just in the degree to which these guys are just pursuing a vision that they really care about. It looks like I'm really scrawny, but actually I have huge muscles, like really etched abs. That would really surprise you. Ass. It's so versatile. You can use it for anything. Like, God, it's hot as ass out here. Or, alternatively, God, it's cold as ass out here. You can pretty much use it for anything. I have no idea. It's a mystery. I actually don't listen to music while I'm working, because when I put music on, I find that I have to focus on the music and I can't focus on anything else. Right now, this year, the games that I had the most fun with were Armadillo Run, which is this indie sort of 2D physics game, fantastic, nerdy fun, and Rhythm Tengoku, this just great Game Boy Advance music game out of Japan, just wicked fun, loved it. And the game I'm most looking forward to is Flow, which is about to ship for the PS3, which just looks beautiful.